Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Moon Boy podcast. I am here with Donovan Jolly over at DIY Investing. Today we are going to be talking about Bitcoin price scenarios, how health can affect your trading, how to make a personal vision for yourself so that you can start to make goals and see yourself going down the path of becoming an investor and trader, and talking about how investing should be a lifelong journey. A couple other things we might go over here, but those are the main things. So it's going to be really awesome. Make sure that you guys hit that like button for us right now, as well as the subscribe button. Links will be in the description for his channel if you're watching it on mine, and my channel if you're watching it on his. We really love and appreciate all of you guys tuning in for these podcasts. We enjoy doing these every single Saturday. So without further ado, let's get straight into it.
Yeah, one thing I want to talk about is the fact that expect most uploads to be on like Sunday from now on.
Oh yeah.
For me personally, I think that I'll be uploading on Sunday. I just wanted to be able to fit in a video on Friday, so the podcast will be on the weekends, every weekend. So that's just something that I've kind of changed a little bit recently.
Yeah, so Donovan is planning on doing 5 videos a week and a podcast, so 6 videos. I will probably be doing that depending on what other stuff I'm working on, webinars, building new site stuff. So if I have extra time on Fridays, I will be doing that as well. But either way, you can always expect those 4 videos and then still getting the podcast on Sunday.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the schedule change, but I really wanted to start off this podcast with price scenarios with Bitcoin, because for me, I think it's really important that we're transparent about the different options and scenarios Bitcoin can do right now. We've started to reject a little bit off the 6,600 level, and we're about 6,200 right now. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we double bottom or we start to go retest those lows. If we do get near those lows, they can fail, and the major support levels are about 3.2 thousand was the last low of the last cycle. So that's like major horizontal support. So we really want that level to hold, otherwise we could drop even below that.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to bring that up in today's podcast. Personally, I'm kind of watching it for it to drop down closer to those lows at this point. Tezos just failed out of a symmetrical triangle with some downside targets, so it wouldn't surprise me if Bitcoin kind of follows along with it. So short-term price action, you guys, we could drop a little bit. It would be dropping onto major support levels, and those major support levels would probably have a lot of buy orders. I would suspect a large bounce at the very least at major support.
Yeah. Really the thing I've been watching for, and kind of what I've been updating my subscribers with, has just been, I've kind of, even from back when we were at 5K before we even had this bounce, I was still expecting us to bounce up and then reject and then fall to retest those lows, and I figured that, you know, if that was actually going to be the bottom of the market, this recent sell-off, that we'd come back down and retest those, unless we got an immediate bounce that was just a reaction all the way back up to 8K, which we didn't. And so for me, I was kind of expecting us to fall back around that 4K range. If we ended up falling lower back down to, you know, like the support of like 3,200,
it would be a little more weak,
yeah,
more weakness in the market.
It's going to look like a descending triangle at that point, and so that's something to keep note of. If it falls and we retest those lows, then it's going to look a lot more bearish, looking less like we'd end up holding that those lows in December. So we got to see kind of what happens there, but as of right now, this has been my plan since the dip, really, just waiting for these lows to be retested and then kind of see what happens, because we're not going to know what happens.
When we were in the ultimate panic, we were buying basically in that wick when everybody was really scared.
Yeah.
And then the market bounced. We basically saw instant profit in all of those positions that we took, which was really, really nice. But I'm also open-minded. You know, I bought Tezos, but I saw symmetrical triangle failed. So if it goes and retests its low support level or even makes a new low, yeah, I'm going to be holding some of my Tezos through that. But also, I posted a short signal for people to make money off of that drop. So there's always a way to make money in the markets, no matter what direction it really goes. That December low is a major support level for Bitcoin. And I personally am betting and have put over half of my cash reserves into Bitcoin when we dropped down to that low. So I'm actually confident in the big picture price action of what's going on, in the big picture of everything. But I wanted to bring that up just so that people, if you're watching the podcast and then you log into your Bitcoin account on Monday and we're at 5,000 again and we're testing major support that we've already tested, basically not to think that it wasn't possible, you
Yeah.
know, because that's always possible scenarios. And, you know, who knows? Maybe the market is just trolling us right now and it just freaking breaks right back up above 6,800 and goes straight for 9K.
Yeah.
There's that option too, you know, but it's just being reasonable and realistic about the symmetrical triangles and stuff.
Yeah.
Gives me a little bit of a at least short-term bear bias.
Yeah, for me, I think that on the short term we could correct back down to the 618 of this original move from 3,800 to what was it,
68 roughly.
Yeah, 6,800. We could drop about the 618 of that move and then continue up, and so that's probably the next thing that I'm going to be watching for, because that'll be the first thing to get hit as far as the support level. And then we'll kind of see if we start to bounce from there, whether we have to come all the way back down and retest those lows.
And
either way, we're going to just kind of have to watch.
My bad. And you are, like, keeping your long-term investments like I am, right, through all of this movement. Even if there's a major support level, you plan on just buying more and just letting the cycle do its thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, obviously I'd have to rethink my plan a little bit. If I think that if we ended up falling all the way back down to, like, those lows of December of last year, then I would start rethinking my plan. But for me, this has always been kind of a long-term thing, and so it really didn't matter that much. I was just more or less going to follow the strategy of just buying throughout the dip and just continuing to average in, because honestly, that's from the biggest mistakes I've ever made is when I try and deviate from that plan, and then I end up just making some mistake. Like, one of the things that I've been updating a lot of people with is just the fact that, you know, when we sold off, I saw a lot of people that were bullish start to flip their bias, and then when Bitcoin started rallying up into resistance,
69, then everybody flipped back
yeah,
bullish.
Everybody flipped back bullish, and that was the day we started retracing. And so I'm starting to be able to see that psychology, but the thing is, I'm not trying to overtrade all of this volatility in the market. We're less than 2 months away from the halving that's about to take place. On top of that, there's just all of this uncertainty around the world economic status that we don't know what.
Pandemic, blah, blah, blah,
there's
blah,
too
blah,
many
this,
uncertain
that,
factors that make me feel like longevity, all of the fundamental aspects that I've been looking for since being in crypto are all kind of coming to a point, and it's today. Like, we have the Fed printing money, we have hyperinflation that's going to start, we have, you know,
like what we talked
virus.
about in the last podcast with the big picture, everything we've wanted to happen to make Bitcoin succeed has started to line up and happen.
Exactly. So for me, it's still long term. I would rather, you know, if we fall all the way back down to those December lows, and then, you know, the halving comes around and we're still making lower highs, and, you know, we haven't made any significant movements, then that's where you're going to have to start to think that maybe I could be wrong and I have to restructure my trading plan a little bit. But until anything like that happens, I'm going to just continue to hold
Keep
through.
your big picture strategy in place. Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. And even, let's just hypothetically say that the 3.2 thousand failed in Bitcoin. Let's just theorize for a second, play with the idea. Because I think it's really important, and what a lot of people do, especially in trading, is once they invest in something, they only play with the idea of going in the direction they want it to go.
Yeah.
So let's play with the idea of it not going the direction we want it to go. 3,000 fails, 1.2 thousand is major horizontal support. That is the top of the 2014 cycle, or 13 or whatever it was, before we went into 2014 bear market, and then went to like $180, and then started a new bull market after that. So that's major horizontal support. If you failed 3,000, you better bet your butt we're going to be hitting that major horizontal support level so fast.
Yeah, fast.
Like, if you don't even look at your portfolio and you just hold through that and don't let the emotion take over to where you just sell in that dip, the recovery process from a drop like that would be so fast. So the last thing you want to do is sell at 1.2 thousand because you failed support at 3. If anything, have your stop loss at 3.2 thousand. Or a little below it because you got to have room for wicks.
3K.
You know, and that for me, that's like the strategy. That's like, okay, we have a low, a December low from 2018 that was made, and it's been the low of the entire market since 2018. So that's the level to care about. That's the one to like. That's like the make or break it level for the big picture strategy that we have in place right now. Our big picture investing plan. That level fails, yeah, maybe taking some Tether out and putting it on the sidelines I personally think it's always good to have a percentage long term no matter what happens in Bitcoin. So not selling 100% into Tether because that's risky too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, having some Tether for the sidelines if that major horizontal support level fails, it's a smart move. Because then you can buy 1.2 thousand and then ride that huge dip back up and everything. I mean, that huge pump back up and everything that would happen just because a fall like that isn't going to last forever. It's going to be bought up really quickly.
And that's the thing that, for me, being a long-term holder of this, the trend, I've only been buying. And the fact is, like, ever since December lows, that's when I figured that the bottom was in. That's when I saw the gold fractal. And that's been, ever since that point, I've just continued to average into positions. You know, if we ended up dropping all the way back down there and we started retesting those December lows, then at that point, I'd probably wait for a little bit of a bounce, maybe take some Tether just in case. But for the most part, that big picture trend is just the main focus here.
Yeah.
And I mean, with like what you said, if we did break support there, it would happen so fast, and people, you know, it'd be a big wick if you zoomed out and put it on a weekly time frame. By the time that weekly time frame actually closed,
it would probably bounce like 50% in like a day or like 6 hours.
Look at the wick that we just recently had. That sell-off was like a 60 to 80% bounce.
From when we hit 4,000 and then we went all the way back up to 6,900. That happened so fast. And the drop did happen a little faster than the recovery process in this specific case, but it was basically the same speed. And that just reminds you that, like, whenever there's a candle that's like, okay, I want to impulsively do this because of the amount of energy is in that candle, you know, like we go from 9,000 down to 4,000 in Bitcoin. People are going to impulsively sell at the bottom of that. Whenever you get that feeling, you really want to step back and ask yourself, is this pure fear? And am I following the crowd? Am I being part of the crowd psychology right now and following what everybody else is doing? And that's definitely why I put so much money and so much cash reserves in when we dropped like that, because I was like, everybody's freaking out right now. And I was right, and it bounced up, and I'm in profit on all of those positions right now. But I'm also keeping open-minded, keeping logical about the situation. I bought Tezos. I might be at a loss depending on where Tezos goes. The symmetrical triangle target could take it to 76 cents before it returns to its bull trend. So there's just like, you have to always watch those impulses, be open and willing to take advantage of those. But also if you get into a position and then you're in profit and then you see that it might not continue to go in profit like you saw, be willing to draw the symmetrical triangle on Tezos that shows that it's going to go down. You know, be willing to see the trading pattern. Don't be biased and then be blind to what's right in front of you just because of your positions. That's something I've done a lot. I've taken a trade and then I am in profits on this trade, and then I see a bearish setup on another coin or something, and I'm like, oh, that's not going to happen. That trading pattern, that's not a bearish setup. And I just legitimately see a bearish setup, but tell myself I don't because I'm already in a position, probably too much in a position. And so I'm not logical about my other trades.
Right.
So I think that's important in times like this to remember that. And that works up and down. You know, it's the same thing for up moves and down moves. It's just...
And that's the thing. I mean, realistically, what you could do, and obviously you don't want a revenge trade, but if Bitcoin were to start failing support at 3,200 or showing that short-term weakness at support, why wouldn't you use that opportunity of a failed support level to start shorting the market and at least hedge some of your long-term investments? Because there's, and obviously you don't want to throw in
with
huge,
low percentages so that you're hedging against the potential losses rather than trying to make back everything that you lost from your trade.
And that's what I think a lot of people will try and do. I've already seen it inside of my Discord. Some of the people that panic sold, they were pissed that it started bouncing, and then they tried to just find a lot of different trades, and it's just, you just got to have patience, and if you make a mistake, you got to just be willing to accept that and kind of, figure out what you can learn from that, because that's going to be the biggest thing. Is it's never really if you're right or wrong, it's what you can take away from each trade, because you're not going to learn as much from your winners as you will from your losers, and obviously you want to be winning more, and so there's a balance in all of this, and so it really just requires you to be able to stick to that plan and then be able to trade it through, and always coming away with something out of that trade that you learned, keeping a trade journal, things like that. We talked about that in some of the first podcasts in this, and that's kind of the biggest thing for me is what I always tell my people in my group is just make sure that you're trying to learn something from all of what you're doing with trading. Because, I mean, if you can take a million trades, but if you're not keeping track of any of that, if you're not learning what mistakes you did or why you took the trade, you're never even going to know how to track your progress.
It's interesting that you said that you learn more from the trades that you lose, which is actually true. And so that's why a lot of people that are beginners, they are like, wow, I've been trading for like a couple months or so, and I've just seen loss after loss after, or sometimes they'll get, like, what's even worse is if they get beginner's luck and make a whole bunch of money off bad habits. So they get rewarded for bad habits, and then they just keep doing them and then get screwed later. But like a lot of traders, if they don't have that initial loss, if they don't go through that period of time of, I keep losing, 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 all of a sudden you just let yourself build all these bad habits in, and you're getting rewarded for those bad habits, and it doesn't work for you. So yeah, that's really, really good stuff. And for me, the biggest thing that helps me to actually remove that is just purely position sizing. Like, position sizing changes everything, because then you're like, yeah, I just lost the trade, but I had 2% of my entire portfolio in that trade. And so you literally do not care. You're like, what's my formula? And then you can focus on your formula, and your formula is the most important thing. I read this book called Atomic Habits, and it talks about how a lot of the wealthiest people in the world, they don't focus on, like, okay, I want to set this goal. It's not like, I want to have $10 million. They do that, but that's not like their primary thing. They don't set the goal and then sit and only focus on that goal. They set the goal, they know they want to make $10 million, and then they forget about it, and they focus on creating formulas to make that money. You know, and that's what this is all about, and that's why risk management is so good, because you can focus on your formula. And then once you've got your formula in place, you scale it, you know? Just like if you're doing Facebook ads, if you're a business and you're trying to market your course or this, that, or the other thing, you know, you figure out your formula, you scale it afterwards, and then it grows from there. But if you try to scale it before you have a formula in place, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of big, painful losses that are hard to learn from, and sometimes will be so discouraging you might give up. So
yeah, honestly, and I think just having my Discord and seeing and having people message me and talk about kind of their own experience with trading, with this recent dip, I've just seen a lot of things kind of pop up that just shows you that predominantly most people that we end up interacting with on Twitter and on YouTube are all just retail, and they really have a hard time understanding what to do. And so a lot of people will be taking huge position sizes. They invested more than they were willing to lose. Now that the market corrects and proved them wrong, they're sitting at these big losses. They're really nervous about the fact that it could keep going lower.
Start revenge trading, like you said.
It's just all of those little things kind of just build up until eventually you're just making a lot of wrong mistakes. And so that's why I've always liked to just stick to that big picture, because it just makes everything so much simpler. Because, I mean, on a time frame you could drop 50%, but then if you zoom out on a weekly, you can see, you know, how many different times that exact setup has happened in times past. And so that kind of helps you, but I know a lot of people make these mistakes, especially right now where we're early on in this trend.
Even 80% drops. Let's talk about that for just a second. Sorry to interrupt you, but 80% drops, like we've had two 80% drops and one 90% drop in Bitcoin. So that's happened 3 times and we recovered every single time. You know? So that little picture just like always screws people over. Even an 80% drop, yeah, that's a big picture drop in the sense of, in the big picture you can see that it dropped, but it's still a recovery thing, and if you're too zoomed in, it will still shake you out.
Yeah, for sure. That's why, you know, I always stick to that long-term trading plan, and that's why when short-term choppy price action starts going down, where a lot of uncertainty, volatility in the economic markets like we're seeing now, it really helps you to just kind of not be so attached with everything that's going on, because you can zoom out on the big picture, you know kind of where your plan is, you know that it hasn't changed, you still have your key levels, and all of the noise in between all of the price action, it's really just you kind of analyzing a couple different levels. And to me, are the levels, the most important levels are probably around like the 20K all-time high down to like the lows of 3,200.
Right.
All of this price action in between is more or less just noise until we either fell support or we start to make a higher
break
high.
Resistance.
Yeah, and that's really the point that we're at right now. I just believe that we've been correcting nonetheless. I still firmly holding on to that bias. And so until I'm proven wrong, then obviously the trading plan changes. But that's the thing with what we're seeing right now is a lot of people are quick to flip their trading plans. A lot of people are just having really no idea what the heck's even happening. And so it can make it very hard and challenging to even know what to do, let alone try and be profitable at the market. And that's why, you know, during times of uncertainty, honestly, having no position at all is one of the better positions that you could ever have, because then you're not worried so much. You're not going to be stressed out. You're not going to be overthinking, overanalyzing. You're not going to be panic selling, making emotional decisions. You can kind of just stick and just, you know, let the market figure itself out, because you don't need to
and
know.
that's where you're always like, keep 40% tether, you know?
Yeah, because you don't need to know the exact bottom. You don't need to you don't need to sell the exact top either. It's just a matter of knowing kind of the levels that in times past have created a bounce, knowing those levels that in market structure are generally overvalued or have overbought or oversold.
Right.
If we react to those levels, there's a lot of liquidity, and it's just merely just having those patience to wait for a trade setup that you are comfortable with and being able to execute on that trade, even if it takes like a month before you see that setup. The most consistent analysts and traders that I've ever been able to learn from, they all are very, very they're very
strict
meticulous with strict, meticulous with the way that they take their trades, and they look for very few setups. They have, you know, a little bag that they pick out of these
lot
setups.
of risk management, really small position sizes,
and that's the biggest thing. Is what we're seeing right now is people that don't know how to invest or trade are getting really chopped up right now because they just don't understand the basic rules when it comes to actually, you know, minimizing
that's
risk.
the fastest way to see if somebody's a beginner. How big is their position size? Because if their position size is like 90% of their portfolio, you better bet your butt he's going to be the guy on Twitter that flips bullish right at the top, like you saw the other day.
Yeah.
Or the guy that flips bearish when we're at 4,000 after falling from 9 down, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really just about, that's a really quick way to find yourself too. Like, ask yourself, what am I doing in this trade? How big is it compared to the rest of your portfolio? And that's like the fastest way to gauge how emotional you're being at that point. Because, you know, you can't really, let's be honest, nobody's going to go and take 100% of their portfolio and put 10x leverage on it, deposit it onto BitMEX, and then go long without a stop loss if you're not being emotional. Like, that's 100% based in emotions.
Yeah.
So there's little questions you can ask yourself to like basically figure out if you're in that emotion or not, because the thing about emotion is a knife can't cut itself. So when you're in that, when you're producing those brain chemicals, because it's a brain chemical thing, then you're so immersed in the experience that it's hard to see yourself in that.
Right.
And so I think one of the big things in trading and investing is just learning how to tap into self-perception, you know, so that you can see yourself and like analyze yourself from a non-emotional state.
Right. And honestly, when it comes to me actually taking like shorter term position trades and even day trades with like margin or something, it's like my portfolio is like almost all of it is diversified between 4 of my favorite cryptocurrencies, and those are my favorite long-term holds, just been my favorite ones that I've picked for this next cycle. And so for me, I've got almost the biggest majority of my portfolio diversified between 4 major altcoins. And the way I like to do it is kind of follow the 80-20 rule as best as you can. So leave like 80% of your portfolio approximately, and the percentages can change, because I think to even be a profitable day trader and consistently be day trading and outperform your long-term portfolio, you might even need like a little bit more than just 20% in that portfolio to be trading consistently. But I found that if I'm just kind of sticking to the cryptos that I know have a strong fundamental use case, that have a good team that's backing them, has a lot of active development, coins that have performed well in retrospect compared to the rest of the market, I put the majority of my portfolio into those, and then I'm taking, you know, most recently, a lot of the positions that I've taken for shorter term, like position trades, a lot of these are coins that I'm interested in. A lot more, they haven't proven themselves. They've only been around for a couple years maybe, and so they don't have a lot of price history to go off of. But with those, you know, I don't even think that I'm risking like 1% of my portfolio in a lot of those. I think some of those that I have it's only like 0.2 to 0.5%.
Right.
And so, you
so
know,
you're
those
being
are really
even
small.
more careful than some of the careful people that you see on the internet.
Right now, yes, because of where the market stands. The second that we create like a sustained uptrend in this new cycle, that's the second that I'm going to be taking a little bit
Bigger
more risk.
positions.
But right now, there's just too much uncertainty. I would much rather accumulate my long terms because I know where those stand in the long term prospect, whereas some of these other younger coins, you never know.
So trading conditions, because if the trading conditions are good, take advantage of that and use larger amounts. Don't get emotional about it, but you can use a few percent of your portfolio or something like that. Mm-hmm. If the trading conditions are good, then, you know, take advantage of that. If they're bad, be extra careful and cautious because there's going to be more chop, more wicks that stop people out.
That's why
more
I say
random candles.
Not having a position if you honestly just don't know what.
If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not investing, because like for investments, like you're basically buying, and that's not even a position. That's like you're just in the market, like, you know what I mean. But for the trading aspect of all of this, for sure, not having a position or having like 80% in Tether for your trading portfolio, you know. Investing, I think that it's important to have Tether, but you can, you know, it's an investment. Mm-hmm. So you're buying and just like literally letting the big picture do its thing.
Yeah.
But I think that all of this stuff with risk management does go along with what we were talking about as one of the topics for today, which is, before we did the podcast, which is how health can affect your trading. And I think that with risk management, for me, I personally notice that if I have a good diet, if I'm exercising, if I'm meditating, if I have those three things in my life down, then I have a lot less probability of trying to take too big of a position size, or a lot less probability of becoming emotional, because I'm in a state of mind that is less emotional about everything, essentially, and more just that inner peace. And so I think that is a form of risk management, is kind of like, it is being able to understand that your own emotions are a form of risk.
Oh yeah.
And then doing things in your life like food or exercise or meditation that manage those emotions to reduce that risk. It's basically risk management. Understanding that you can't fully trust yourself as a human being because you're a biological creature that has biological triggers. And doing things to help those really goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just like your surroundings, like you said, what
people
you're eating.
Around
yeah,
too.
That's probably the biggest thing, is you're most like I think it's like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. That's perfect example of like who you are, what you are as a person. And so look at the people you spend the most time with, and I don't even think I have 5 people that I spend the most time with, to be honest, but that's a big thing, is how you eat. That's going to be huge. Exercising, because I mean, obviously if you're super unhealthy and you're overweight, you're not going to feel good about yourself. You're not going to feel good, period, because you're overweight and unhealthy. And so how do you expect to wake up every morning feeling refreshed,
clear-minded,
ready to actually go trade and look for investments and things, make charts, do things like that, upload a YouTube video? You're just not going to do it. And so, you know, that is going to stress you out. And having that stress, if you're around people that are toxic relationships, that are negative people, that are only going to drag you down, you're not ever going to be raising your vibration. You're never actually going to be feeling good. You're always going to be surrounding yourself with people that are just taking away from that energy.
Yeah.
You got to remember that your energy is precious, and it's very important that you kind of store that and you use
value
that energy.
Yourself.
Yeah, because you need to use that energy to do all of the things throughout your day. And so, you know, with crypto, it can be very emotionally taxing. If you don't know what you're doing, and especially if you're just getting into this for like the first time in your life, it's going to be very hard. So, you know, do your best to take care of yourself first and foremost, because once you take care of yourself, everything will kind of work itself out. You'll be clear-headed. You'll be able to kind of tackle those same questions, problems that you might have, and you'll be able to do it in a very grounded way within yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I'll sit down, and if I'm in a state of just internal fog or just feeling like I'm not clear-minded, just foggy-minded or anything like that, I'll sit down and I'll start doing analysis, and then like I'll take trades, and I'll look back at my analysis like later, like a month later when I'm in a better place, and I'll be like, holy cow, like that was really, really bad TA. Like that was completely emotional, completely illogical. Like I missed that, and I'm like, that was my state of mind, that was my state of well-being. And there's lots of things that can do that, but it's just the big three, really.
Yeah.
It's like those are the big three, and I think that it's important to bring it up in the podcast. It's important to talk about it with you guys, because a lot of times when I research stuff like trading and investing, I never once found anybody that told me that I needed to be physically healthy, mentally healthy, have positive relationships. But that was probably the biggest thing that's positively impacted my trading and my investing.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely the biggest key for me. And I don't know why nobody even thinks about that, because it's not only trading, it's literally just the universal concept.
Yeah.
How can you as an individual go out there, make the most money, be the most productive, create the most value, provide the most jobs, do all of those things if you're 50 pounds overweight, you eat unhealthy food every single day, you're negative in your own mental dialogue, and then you project that negativity onto others, you're never going to create that value. And so trading's the same way. It's the same way if you're trying to have a race car, where you're going to drive a car with 100,000 miles and have old beat up parts that are just refurbished, or are you going to take care of that, change the oil every couple thousand miles, and you're going to everything, all of that, because it's just the maintenance of your body, maintenance of your mind, maintenance of all of that creates
maintenance of your
yourself.
Relationships. And one thing that I also do, and I really haven't ever talked about this on my channel before, but I do semen retention as well, which is just, one of the things that people in this world, a lot of people just abuse their sexual energy because the world is so sexualized. I mean, you get on Instagram and it's basically like Pornhub minus nudes, it's just like, there's nothing naked on there. There's nobody that's naked, no girls that are naked, but there's girls that are there's enough girls that are very sexually, they just, it's very sexy, provocative, and so you can still get those sexual urges, and if you don't learn to control that and not ejaculate, a lot and consistently, I think that it's a waste, because sexual energy is creative energy. You can literally create a baby with that energy, and if you're just wasting it, all the time, and you're not learning self-control, it just creates internal shame, internal guilt, low energy levels, brain fog. In my experience, that's what I find. And so I personally practice semen retention. I'm not perfect at it. I don't think anybody is, but I practice that. And it's another one of those things, like meditation, like exercising, that gives me that clarity, that allows me to feel more comfortable about myself, look people in the eyes longer. Just I think a lot of people build internal guilt, and it's almost looked at like a not a big deal, or looked at like a healthy thing. When I first researched it, when I was young and I first started researching this stuff, the internet told me that masturbation was good for your body, that it was important, and that you had to do it multiple times, not had to, but it basically suggested that you masturbate consistently, which is a very interesting thing for them to suggest, and that's the common belief on Healthline or any popular health website will tell you that it's a good thing. And I don't think that I don't think that it's bad to do things with people sexually, have sexual relationships or anything like that. I just think that it needs to be reserved for the right time and place, and that's where most people are getting it wrong, and that's what builds internal guilt and shame within people, is they're not doing those things in the right time and place.
Right.
And that affects my trading for sure.
It just reminds me of like self-control, I guess, because you could look at it as, you know, you get this urge and then you either act on that urge or you don't. And the same can be said with, you know, masturbation, your trading plan, because you could view that one in the same. Your trading plan is very similar in the way, you know, you might have this emotional urge that pops up to panic sell or to buy something just because, who knows, maybe you saw some guy's tweet or something.
Yeah.
And you have the choice to act on that urge and, you know, put energy towards that. Or you can choose to have that self-control and just kind of, you know, do your own thing. And that's kind of one and the same with trading is, you know, do you have that self-control to not act on your emotional state and those emotional urges?
Just addictions in general to anything, whether it's food or like retweeting a tweet about like this or that or just anything like you said that is that urge, and then you just give into it instead of step back, let the urge subside, and then just act based on like your true self, in a sense.
And that's one of the things that people are going to find out when they do try and learn how to trade cryptocurrency or invest in any financial market, is the thing, you know, how are you as a person and an individual ever supposed to figure out, you know, what an urge is or what your emotions are or what is an emotional urge that you're going to feel? How is anybody ever supposed to feel those if you haven't even been able to analyze that within yourself? And so it's like one of the things we talked about in the last one is meditation, things like that, because it's all one and the same. I mean, you're going to have emotional urges that pop up, but the thing between the guy that profits as an analyst and the guy that doesn't is the fact that one guy knows that when he does have those emotional urge, he has a separation from him and that urge, and he can say, okay, that's not me, I'm not going to act on that, compared to the other person that doesn't have control, doesn't have harmony within himself. You're going to have that urge pop up and he's just going to impulsively act on it like an animal. And that's this difference between people that have control over themselves and people that don't. You have to really dive into yourself to even understand what it is you're looking for.
And it's not the thing that caused you to have the urge that's at fault. You know, it's not the girl on Instagram posting the picture. It's not the tweet that you want to retweet just because he has a bullish bias and you're just urging to retweet the tweet because you're long on Bitcoin and you're just being impulsively emotional. It's yourself that's at fault for acting on that urge. And that's another big thing, is take responsibility for it. When I bring up Instagram girls, I'm not blaming them. You know, they're attractive women, and I honestly am thankful for the fact that there's a lot of attractive women that show how attractive they are in this world. It's a beautiful thing. But it's my job to be able to act on that in my own personal way and not, you know, be impulsive because of it. So,
and that's one of the biggest lessons that some of these new people are going to learn, is just the fact that you got to be able to, you know, own up to those mistakes that you end up making, because you're going to make a lot of them. And you got to be willing to, you know, accept the fact that you made a mistake, accept the fact that you're going to make continuous mistakes, and then just being able to hold yourself accountable, but not beating yourself up over the fact. Because honestly, you got to just think of it coming into each trade with something that you're trying to take away, the knowledge of each trade, whether you're right or wrong, whether you make money or lose money, it doesn't matter. But you're trying to learn something, and then, you know, with whatever the outcome is, whatever the end result is, hold yourself accountable for all of that. If you know, had a trading plan and then you quickly change something up only to get stopped out, and then have your trading plan prove you right, except you don't have the position anymore, being able to stop and be like, okay, I was originally right, what in that moment made me decide to flip things up, what can I take away from this so next time I don't make the same mistake? And then once you have that kind of guideline, you know, trading is emotionless for the most part. You're always going to feel that. But for the most part, it becomes emotionless because you're just going into each and every trade like it's just a new day, new opportunity. And that's it. You're not focused on the past. You're not focused about the future. You're just each and every trade one at a time.
And not creating internal guilt. And I think that was an important thing that you just said, because one of the big things that people try and do when they try and learn something new is they start learning and start learning and start learning. They make a mistake. And so then they create an internal narrative of guilt or shame towards the mistake that I made. And what you said, being able to admit to yourself that yes, I made this mistake, and this is where I went wrong, and I can improve on this. But then just being like, but that is part of the game, and these mistakes are what actually make me grow and make me better. And what you also said about how the mistakes are usually the biggest teachers, the losses are usually the biggest teachers. And so then it flips your perspective around. You create this inner dialogue of growth, inner dialogue of achievement, of building yourself up, you know, instead of tearing yourself down. And I think that shame, sometimes people almost think it's like noble to be like shamed or like guilt, like it's like a good thing. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Almost like they're being like good because of the fact that they're creating internal shame or something. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like sports. So I used to play high school basketball, and this reminds me a lot of like playing on the high school team, and you lose a tough game or something. You know, there's always those kids on the team that are pouting after, that won't talk to anybody, that are just, you know, all shrunk in,
and they almost think that they're being like noble or something for being
and honestly, I used to be one of those kids that wasn't trying to like pout or anything. Like, I'd still talk to the kids on my bus, and like I was over it if we lost the game. But like, if it was a close game and then I did something that I felt was wrong within myself, like I would beat myself up for it. But that's the thing, the more that I played basketball, the older that I got, the more mature I got, the more I understood my own emotional state, the more I realized that, you know, if I'm playing basketball and I'm shooting hoops and I haven't played for a couple months and I'm a little rusty, I'm going to be missing some shots and I'm not going to be doing as good. But, you know, in that situation, I have two options. I can get mad at myself, or I can just kind of, you know, brush it off, laugh at myself, and just make it kind of a game. And I've always noticed that, for me personally, if I'm angry about myself or at myself, I'm always going to make more mistakes, and I'm going to be more mad when something doesn't go right. And it's just a self-perpetuating energy that's just going to drag me down, compared to, you know, if I just say, oh, I missed it, oh, I missed 10 in a row, yeah, I'm way better than this, but it's all good, I haven't played in a couple months, and just brush that off. Pretty soon, you're going to be optimistic, you're going to be opening your mind to, you know, another way of shooting. Maybe you'll think, okay, I'm not holding the ball right in this hand or something. And, you know, instead of you being so mad at yourself, instead you're changing that energy towards something of, okay, you know, how can I change this to be a little bit better? What can I be doing to make things better? Instead of just saying, oh, I suck, I'm mad, and then just, you know, not gaining anything from that.
It's kind of like the things that you tell yourself become how you feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, and that goes along with what we were about to say next, which was make a personal vision and start seeing yourself taking that path. Mm-hmm. You know, like for me, I made a vision board. I've also written down all of the things that I want in my life. So I know what I want. I know, like, what Dallin desires in life. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I can do little things every day and tell myself stories that are congruent or in alignment with those things, you know. Mm-hmm. That internal dialogue, I can change it around to be in alignment with my desires and my vision.
Right.
And when I find myself doing that, when I find myself kind of like seeing myself, like envisioning myself or imagining myself in certain situations, it's more of a positive internal dialogue, and that creates that in my life as well. You know, just like how you said, if you always get mad at yourself, then you're probably going to even miss more and like get frustrated. But if you tell yourself, or you laugh at yourself, and then you just treat it like a different thing, and then you envision yourself starting to make the shots, you know, you actually, because you're not putting so much pressure on yourself to be right, you're just letting things happen, but you know what you want, you know?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just having kind of like this divine inner knowing within yourself that, you know, whether it's who you want to be, whether it's where you're going in life, or whatever the heck it might be, knowing the end goal and desire of what you're wanting to manifest, but not being so hung up on the short term as far as, it's not here yet, or will it be here a couple days from now, something like that. Not getting so focused, just knowing that you are this divine being that is here to serve this immense purpose of some sort. Whatever the goal...
Serve the planet Earth.
Yeah, whatever... If you're running a business, if you're wanting to be a movie star, something like that, you know, have that vision and focus. Know that you're going to get there no matter what. It's just something within you that you know. Like, you already are that thing. It's not that, oh, I will be a movie star in this many years. No, you are that, and you're working towards that each and every day to get to that end goal. And that's the biggest thing for me. Has just always been, before I got into crypto, I had legal problems. I dropped out of high school. I was in detention centers for juvenile. This was all right before I learned about crypto. Finally, I just
They called you a troubled child?
Yeah. And I've been in and out of therapy since I was 15 years old, so I've had all these little things, but finally it got to the point where I was sick and tired of how my life sucked. I knew that I was the issue, and I knew that I was the problem for all of that, so I took the ownership for my own mistakes. And then, I started just educating myself. I learned about the Federal Reserve Bank. I learned about centralized banking, knew it was corrupt. I met you that following week, and we knew each other previously, but this was the first time we started hanging out. You told me about Bitcoin, and then from that day on, I knew that I was a Bitcoin investor. I didn't even have any Bitcoin, but that's what I was. And I remember after that day, I knew that that's my whole focus was going to be Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It was after that day I had to go back to some more therapy for 3 weeks. I had to go back to another institution, and finish all of the legal things that I was going through at the time. But the entire time I was in all of that, I remember talking to my instructors that were the leaders of whatever the heck, the therapy program, and they would always, they'd ask you questions. What do you want to do with your life? You always get those sort of questions, especially being a troubled juvenile. And so I just told everybody, I am a Bitcoin investor. I'm going to put all of my money into Bitcoin, and it's going to moon. I told everybody that. And that's the exact thing.
And it was probably worth $500 or something?
Yeah, $400. Yeah, I told everybody I was going to go into Bitcoin, and it was just that. I knew that that's what I was. I knew that that was going to be where I put all of my focus for. I didn't have any money into it, but slowly but surely I got money. I put in money into crypto. Crypto started going up, and then got to the point where I was no longer hanging out with the same negative influences. Me and you were just focusing on crypto. Pretty soon we moved into each other. Crypto blew up, and then now
everything
we have YouTube
fell
channels.
right into place.
Exactly. And so the whole point of this is have that end result as the thing you're trying to manifest. Have that always in your subconscious. Know that it's already here. You already obtained that. But just know that it just takes work to finally manifest that end result. And one day, just having that vision, the God, the universe, whatever the heck you want to believe, coincidence if you want, it all has this way of just giving you all of the resources that you need once you actually make it up in your head that this is what I want and this is what I will have and manifest.
And also, what I've found is that the more divine your purpose, so if you're trying to educate a whole bunch of people on how to become financially stable, that right there, that really, really brings divine purpose into your life because you see how much it helps people. So you get more out of what you're trying to do in your life when your purpose is a bigger why. And so the why of high altitude is to decentralize investing so that it's not just Goldman Sachs, it's not just trading desks that are making millions of dollars trading Elliott waves with Fibonacci and market cycles. It's the average person is starting to do this type of stuff. So that's a really big purpose, that's a big why. But even more so, we have even other ideas also, because we think about this, we work on this a lot 5 days a week, but we also think about, how blockchain can change the world, and we think about that technology, and we create other whys, and, as we develop our companies, as we develop high altitude, as you develop DIY, and we build our wealth up, then we can branch out and have even more whys that are just as big or bigger sometimes, than the ones we're doing right now. And I think that's important, the why, because that's what gives you purpose. If you wake up in the morning and people ask you, oh, well, what do? You're like, well, I help people become financially secure because I was living in a shack one time and I had no money to my name and was crying, and my parents were telling me a good job and I had no direction and didn't know what I was going to do with my life. That seems like a pretty big reason to wake up in the morning, you know what I mean? And that helps with all of the other stuff like mental health, having your vision, all of those things. When you have that big why, it really helps with your mental health because it gives you that purpose feeling, and that's
that one of the things that recently happened was, a little over a year ago, I moved in with my ex-girlfriend, really toxic relationship, and that whole time,
done there.
Yeah, that whole entire time I was out there, I remember, it was a month ago. I actually went back and was rewatching some of those older videos of when I was living with her. And I just look and I have dark circles under my eyes. I'm like, I haven't even got up and showered. My hair is messy. I'm just doing everything that I can to get out of bed and just make the video in the first place. It took everything that I had. And, it perfectly kind of succumbs to what we were just recently talking about. It's just all of those factors, Being in a toxic relationship, I had no motivation to even want to make YouTube videos. I knew
felt like you had
to do it every single day. And I didn't upload 5 days a week by any means. It was maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And it was just so much stress, so much worry, and all of this uncertainty. Come summer of last year, 2019, I leave that place and then I come back to here. And it was shortly after where my channel actually just exploded. And it was the second that I got back, I uploaded 5 days a week. I was actually feeling purpose in uploading.
You wanted to upload.
Yeah, it was no longer, I need to upload, maybe one day I can grow my channel and make enough money to provide for myself type of thing, to where now it was, okay, I'm fine, I'm good, I don't need to worry about money or anything. This is what I love to do, I'm going to focus on that. And eventually my channel picked up, grew way faster than the whole entire months and months I was out and living with my ex-girlfriend. And it just goes to show that your environment, what you're eating, all of everything coexists into kind of who you are. And so, don't expect to be a profitable trader if you are in a toxic relationship where you're constantly worrying about a million different things at once, because it's not going to work.
Facts, bro. That is so true. I felt this same thing when I had a similar kind of relationship in my life. So definitely true. Who you're around, will completely change everything. And that is kind of going along with your state of consciousness, which is, there's this thing called the Hopkins Scale. You guys can look it up on Google, which basically states that there is a scale of emotions and they function similar to colors do. You could think of them like frequencies. Reds are really low wavelengths that move really slow, and purples are really fast wavelengths that move really fast. That's kind of the same thing. You can think of consciousness, your personal emotions, as the same thing. And when I was in a toxic relationship, I had the same problem. I always felt shameful. I felt like I was in a contractive state of emotion. I was feeling all these really low frequency emotions, low vibrations, and I was getting that reflected in my life. I was losing my money that I had earned. I was spending too much. I was being just basically too delusional with myself and living this fake reality and just hoping that it was going to change while I was in these really low states of emotion, states of consciousness, and shame and guilt and fear and anger. All of those things, they're not going to bring you positive things in your life. Those are really low vibrations, red color emotions, really just slow. But when you do the meditation, when you get around good people, when you cut the toxic person out of your life, if you have one, everything will change. It just takes drastic action. You just have to actually make a drastic change to make it reflect that. And then your emotions will all be high vibration. And
one of the things is that I've recently learned, specifically with crypto, because crypto was the thing that brought me money for the first time in my life, because before I was just broke all the time, never had any money. But crypto was the first thing that actually gave me a little bit of wealth, that I could actually start to learn how money works, start to learn how I can, spend all of it or end up saving it, positive and negative mistakes with money. But one thing I learned over the last few years, after having money and going from not having money and then having money and losing money and all of the different scenarios in between, I think that the biggest thing for me that I've learned is the fact that we as humans, we don't like to admit it, but oftentimes we have voids within ourselves that we try and use external things to fill: money, women,
girl,
things like that, materialistic things that are
the
just
car, the girl, the house.
And that's with crypto, you see that all the time. You know, oh, I'm going to invest all this money in XRP, and then it's going to hit $589, and then I'll buy a Lambo. Things like that. but the thing is, you'll buy the Lambo, and then you're going to feel the exact same way that you felt the day before. Maybe a week goes by, and then that newness dies away, and then you're back at square one. Only you just spent $200,000 on a Lambo that's now just sitting in your garage, and you could have had that extra $200,000 to do something else.
And by the way, if your headlight breaks, you've got expenses.
Yeah,
so it's a liability,
spend about $2,000 on a headlight. Yeah, so it's all those things. What I've learned is just the fact that, you know, it's very, very, very important to have a connection with yourself. Go out, meditate, exercise, eat healthy. Because if you have a void within yourself, chances are if you're overweight, you're going to walk past the mirror and you're not even going to want to look at yourself because you're just going to feel ugly. That's a void within yourself. And the second that you get money, the second that you actually get a little bit of success, you're going to be doing everything that you can to fill that void with something else. And that's the point.
It'll just
you start spending your money.
Big problem, because then you have resources to feed the emptiness.
Yeah, and that's where people lose all of their wealth. And that's why I think that, you know, every millionaire, billionaire, anybody that's successful always tell you that money will never buy you happiness. And then you have the poor people that make you the argument, yeah, but I'd rather be crying in a Lambo. And it's just, those type of people were never designed to make money, because once they actually do get money, they start to realize just how little money actually changes anything. Yes, you can get a nicer house. Yes, you can upgrade your life. Money's a tool that can help you obtain more of the things that you want. But if you don't already have that connection within yourself, you're just going to be filling a void that will never end.
Yep, so you really got to figure out a way to generate internal happiness instead of external pleasure. And that's, for me, a big thing that happened was I started meditating and doing all of these things, creating internal pleasure, and then instead of being like, oh yeah, well it's better to cry in a Lambo, now I'm like, it's better to not have any money in my bank account and be in the woods meditating in a state of pure bliss, like in internal peace, and be able to create that within myself, than it is to be crying in a Lambo. Now, with that being said, if you know how to create that internal peace within yourself, you can be meditating in a Lambo and not very long. Like, you know what I mean? Because you will be in a state of consciousness that allows you to navigate the world in a way that you can not only get what you want, but it's not out of the wrong reasons, and you're not filling this internal gap. And the first time I got rich, and I'm getting rich the second time right now, every single day. But the first time that I got rich, it was more, I definitely knew how to create internal happiness, but I had a lot more of the looking for exterior things to fill it. And then I suffered some consequences of that, you know, overspending, buying things that I could have just gotten, I could have even still gotten a nice thing, but not have gone overboard, you know. And so it's just like for the wrong reasons. It was too flash instead of to accomplish something for myself.
I actually noticed that recently, around, would have been like December. Ended up buying some clothes for the first time in years. I've been wearing the same clothes since like high school, pretty much.
Because you had been making so much money.
Yeah, and so I wanted to actually, you know, buy some clothes, because I was recycling the same 2 pairs of pants for the last like year and a half at this point. So figured it was time that I needed to actually upgrade my wardrobe. But you know, spent like $500 on clothes, got all the clothes, and then I just sat there feeling like, wow, why did I just buy that? Like, I'd rather just wear the same 2 pairs of pants and buy some more crypto or something. That's just, you know, that's been me since 2016. And I don't really care about buying anything but crypto, and I've just put all of my money into that and just consistently averaged into that. It's really just been my plan all the way through. And you know, that makes me happy, because I know that I don't have these external things I'm trying to, you know, fill within myself. I know that I have the money. It's like I could go out and spend it on things. I could go get a nice car. I could go get this. But at the end of the day, I just don't. And it makes me feel worse trying to go out and do that. That's why I know that I'm comfortable within myself, who I am, what I am, my purpose. I have that purpose. Because the second that you don't have purpose or direction, you're going to be trying to do everything you can to fill the void. And that's the biggest thing. People out there, you're going to make a lot of money from crypto when this bull run goes up. People will make a lot of life-changing amounts of money, but the thing is, you got to have your priorities in place before that ever comes, because don't want that to change you in any sort of way, because we've seen people change over money personally.
Yeah.
We've seen the way that money can change people and the way people start to act when, you know, that kind of starts to come into your life. And for me, it's never changed me as far as like who I am. It's always more or less, money's just been there for me to kind of just get more of the things that I've wanted. It's never really, you know, I've been happy without money and I've been happy with money, but the most depressed, some of the saddest points of my life were actually a point where I had a lot of money. And so, you know, it really doesn't buy you any sort of happiness. It just kind of is just a way to
It's a resource, it's a tool. Yeah, there's a little thing that I've heard people say that, you know, if you're... Money just makes you more of what you already are. So if you're a broke asshole and then you get rich, you're going to be a rich, big asshole. But if you're a broke, genuine person that likes to give and be kind and help people and develop people and create and invent, and then you're just going to be even more of that when you have money. I mean, look at Elon Musk, you know, like people, like when they get the resources to do their dreams and they have big dreams, you become a very big, powerful person. But even more so than the power, just influence. Power isn't even the word I want to use. You become a person that is impactful and inspirational. You impact and inspire. And that's a form of power, but I would say that's the best. Empowerment? Yeah, empowerment. You empower others. You don't have power over them, but you empower people. And that's a revolutionary thing. If we get more people that do that, the world will change. So, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much everything I want to talk about in today's podcast. You know, focus on, just to kind of go over a little bit of what we have talked about as an overview. Bitcoin price scenarios. Got to be open, honest about potentials. We're watching major horizontal support. I'll probably buy some more at major horizontal support if we get down there.
Yeah, I've been waiting for a retest of 4K for the last couple weeks, so I'm going to just end up holding through that no matter what.
And then how your mental health and your physical health can affect your trading and investing. Basically, it's good to maintain your mental and physical health, and nobody else on YouTube that's an investor will probably tell you to do that.
Yeah.
We're the only ones.
First and foremost, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, then you take care of your bread.
Yeah, exactly. And then make a personal vision for yourself, you know, your why, what you desire, and then create an internal narrative that you see yourself and imagine yourself getting closer to that. And then investing should be a lifelong journey, like what you were talking about, how that when you started envisioning yourself as an investor, you realized that you were an investor in Bitcoin, but you know, you've made a bunch of money on it and lost a bunch of money, just like me, and you're still an investor in Bitcoin. So this is a lifelong journey for us. And then to be in a constant state of education. We didn't really run over that, but that's really, really important. And risk to reward, we talked about how emotion is a form of risk, and mental health will reduce that.
Yep, so make sure everybody is taking care of themselves, eating right, sleeping enough, surrounding themselves with positive influences, focusing on your goals and what you're wanting to manifest. If you focus on the things that you love every single day, you're going to match that energy, because life is all energy. And so, you know, if you're somebody that's feeling love and appreciation for everything that you're working on, say that you're working on a business and you just feel so excited about that, you're emitting that energy, and you're basically going to receive that exact energy back from people,
and
experiences.
It will expand because you're focusing on it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the biggest thing. Focus on exactly what you're trying to manifest, not what you're trying to manifest, what you are manifesting. Focus on all of those things. Make sure that you're being clear-headed, level-headed, taking care of yourself, so that you can in turn take care of your investments and take care of your financial future. So
yep, and that will change your state of consciousness. The Hopkins Scale, Hawkins.
It's actually my screensaver.
Yeah, that's really useful. The Hopkins Scale, you guys. So that changed my life personally. The scale of consciousness and understanding where I was at. It's another good way to reflect. And the cool part about the Hopkins Scale of consciousness is it's very similar to the market cycle of emotions, and so you start to put those two together and they synergize and expand. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys tuning in to today's episode of the Moon Boy Podcast. We love and appreciate every single one of you guys. And we look forward to seeing you guys next Sunday for the next episode. As always, stay profitable out there.